Hello and welcome to the third instalment of the Two Network Transfer Links series. So previously we've looked at defence, including goalkeepers, fullbacks, centre-backs. We've looked at midfielders, which include defensive midfielders, centre midfielders and attacking midfielders centre. You've joined us for the attackers video, so I'll be looking at some of the transfer targets for wingers and for strikers and forwards. Okay, so what we've got is I've put together a list of rumours, targets who I think we should be looking at as well, and added my own star rating to them, which indicates a probability that they'll sign for us. So a 1-star probability means that that player is probably less likely to sign for us, however is still sort of in the mix. A 3-star player, I believe we are a shoo-in to buy this season. Okay, so that's how a rating works. It's not scientific. It's based purely on gut instinct. So please expect me to get this all horribly wrong. Now, obviously, by the time you listen to this, if you listen to it on a podcast or watch the video on YouTube, we might have signed about 5 players that I haven't included in this list. So also prepare for me to fail on that front as well. But anyway, I thought it was going to be quite an interesting concept to get together all of these transfer rumours and discuss each one on their merits and see what kind of squad Rafa Benitez might be looking at for his first full Premier League season with Newcastle United. Okay, so let's start with wingers. And the first winger on the list is a Mr. Andros Townsend, an old familiar face. As you can see on the card here, for those of you watching on YouTube, I'd like to thank Johnny Monkhouse for doing the graphics for these. I think they look excellent. Gives you a nice visual prop for me just chatting at you on screen. But for those of you listening on SoundCloud or iTunes, don't worry, I'll do my best to explain in detail what everyone else is saying on the screen in terms of stats, little profiles for each of the players. So Andros Townsend, it's a funny one, isn't it? We obviously got him and had to sell him after we got relegated. He wanted to maintain his Premier League status, I guess, for his England ambitions, for his career ambitions. And as much as there was a bit of a backlash, I don't think there was too much animosity between him and Rafa Benitez. I think there was a respectful understanding of why he was deciding to move on. He's a player that performed very well for us in that last half of the season in the Premier League. He contributed to a lot of goals, either scoring or assisting. This season in the Premier League, he's got a Who Scored rating of 7.06, which is really good. He managed 3 goals and 4 assists, which, to be honest, he was being benched a lot at the start of the season under Allardyce. And it was only kind of the second half of the season where he managed to sort of flourish a bit, from my eyes. He turns 26 this summer. Things are a bit in disarray at Crystal Palace at the moment, simply because Sam Allardyce has just quit, quite surprisingly. I'm not sure what's happened there. I wouldn't be surprised if some more details of that emerge in the coming months. But he's suddenly left kind of with not much reason to stay at Palace, really. He doesn't know what the manager situation is going to be like. They've narrowly avoided being dragged into the relegation fight proper. Did he feel at home at Newcastle? There's arguments to say that he would be loved if he came back. I mean, I'm a big admirer of him. I loved what I saw of him in a black and white shirt. Really direct, really pacey, good from free kicks as well. I mean, this season he showed his versatility as well. He started 14 games on the right wing for Palace, 10 on the left wing. I think because of the weird payment situation as well, because Palace haven't paid outright for him yet, they're still paying in instalments, that might make it easier to buy him back. I know Rafa's a big fan of him. I think we probably wouldn't have to pay too much over 50 million for him, to be honest, and most of that might be money that we're owed anyway, so that'll take it off what Palace have begun to pay for him anyway. I think if Rafa's keen, apparently he's keen to get about 3 wingers in, which I think sounds about right. We've got Atsu in, which might count as one of them, but with the likes of Gouffron moving on, you've got Aarons, who's, well, he's made of Weetabix, isn't he? We can't rely on him being fit, as talented as he is when he is on the pitch. We're lacking in those areas. Sammy Amiobi's bound to move on as well. I can imagine him going to a championship club, for example. So Rafa likes players who, like Richie, who can play both wings. We can't rely on Richie all the time, so we need good quality. I mean, look at Palace at the minute. They've got Townsend, they've got Punchin, they've got Zaha, they've got options, and we need similarly that many options as well for our wing play. So I think this whole Sam Allardyce leaving thing has really thrown a cat amongst the pigeons. I've made Andros Townsend a 3-star probability to sign. It was going to be 2-star, but I think Sam leaving changes everything. He has still got 4 years on a new deal from Palace, but as I said before, given the financials and the complexities there, given that Palace still owes for him, I think we could probably make something work. We were very close to signing him in January. Rafa clearly making a beeline for him. I think it was reported like they just want an extra 2 million. I don't know quite what happened there. Rafa seemed a bit miffed. Hopefully he can get his man this summer, and I'd be very surprised if he hasn't already been on the phone to his agent, on the phone to Palace, declaring his interest. So Andros Townsend, I've got him as a 3-star likelihood of signing for Newcastle United this summer, and this is one that I really hope comes through. Next up on my list is a bit of a wild card option, maybe not too many rumours, but he's certainly a target that I think Newcastle, if you want to show ambition, should be aiming for, is Emil Forsberg, who's a Swedish winger playing for Leipzig in Germany. Now, they've had a fantastic season. They've had an incredible season. They've qualified for the Champions League. He's got 12 goals and 19 assists this season. He's an out-and-out winger. He's absolutely excellent. His dribbling, his crossing. He's a danger from set plays as well. Now, he's a player who's 25, so a very good age. I know Liverpool have been previously linked with him over the last few months as well. So if he was to be available, it would be a pretty difficult, pretty tricky buy to pull off, I think. I've got him as a 1-star probability simply because he's one of the best attacking wingers in the top 5 leagues in Europe, really highly rated. He has guaranteed Champions League football next season, but again, with Rafa Benitez, you just don't know what his pull's like. You don't know what the pull and the draw of Premier League wages are like. Forsberg's clearly got more big moves ahead of him, and he might well stay with Leipzig this season. I mean, he's on a 5-year deal. He's got a transfer market value of 12.75 million. So if he was to be available, he wouldn't be going for anything less than 30 million, I'd say, probably around 30, 35, simply because of his performances this season. But in terms of what we're looking for, he's slightly under the radar, despite certainly, well, maybe not in Germany, but certainly around the rest of maybe in England, he's slightly under the radar. He would be quite a canny, shrewd buy, I think, Forsberg. I like the look of him. Really good statistics. But he might just be a step too far for Newcastle if he were to be available at all. So next up, we've got Wonder Kid from Arsenal. It's Nigerian Alex Iwobi, who plays all across the front line, left wing, right wing, attacking midfielder, centre as well. He's a player I was really impressed with actually at the start of this season. The fact that he managed to bed in a starting place amongst the likes of Sanchez, for example. He filled in for Sanchez when he wasn't available as well. He's a really exciting young player. He got Who Scored rating of 6.66, which is, it's okay, it's reasonable for a player of his age, just trying to develop himself and bed himself into the first team of a top side. But the second half of the season, he didn't really get many minutes. He still managed 3 goals and 3 assists in the league, which did my fantasy Premier League a favour for a couple of weeks. But I've got him as a 2-star here simply because I think he would be a very good loan option, and I think there's going to be a lot of changes at Arsenal this summer. If he wasn't getting into the side towards the end of this season, it might be an indication that he's not going to necessarily get his game next season, especially if they recruit more attacking midfielders. So Wenger or Arsenal might be looking at loaning Iwobi out, and again, Rafa Benitez, a very respected manager. I think this is going to help us in the loan market because he can be trusted that if he's going to go for a player, good young players, that they'd be in good hands and that they'd be able to develop under a world-class manager. This is one of the benefits of having Rafa Benitez at the club. We'll be able to get some really good, hungry, young talent coming into the club, wanting to prove their Premier League worth and giving everything for, as it turns out, Newcastle United might be. So Iwobi, I've got him as a 2-star there for a loan. I don't think it's in the bag. It's debatable whether he'd be even up for loan, but I think that would be a good move all round, depending on how Arsenal intend to use him. If he's not going to get his game, they might see him getting first team football elsewhere as a real possibility. And he's a great shout. Absolutely great player. Really like him. A strong rumour in the press over the last couple of months has been almost forgotten man at Southampton, left forward Jay Rodriguez. Now Rodriguez has been an England international. He's going to be turning, he's 27 at the minute, he's going to be turning 28 before the summer's out. He was always a reasonable player a couple of years ago. He scored 15 goals and 3 assists in the 2013-14 season, which is really impressive. He got him an England call-up. He showed that he can play up front, he can show that he can play as a sort of attacking forward left as well, which we require that role. But my reservations around Jay Rodriguez come with his fitness and his lack of form because of his fitness over the last couple of years. So since he scored those 15 goals at the end of the sort of 2014 seasons, in those 3 years since, he's missed 75 games through injury. Now, I've mentioned this before. This is including like ankle injury, cruciates as well. I don't think Rafa is a big fan of injury proneness. We ended up having 4 goalkeepers on the books because he didn't want another goalkeeping crisis like we had when he first arrived. He's likely to buy other positions like left back. He's wanting more left wingers because he knows that Aarons can't be relied upon in terms of fitness. I'm not sure that Jay Rodriguez represents maybe the solid signing that we want, the dependable signing. I think if we were to get him, he's got a market value there of 8.5 million. He's got 2 years left on his deal at Southampton. I think if we could get him for around 10 million, that would be a reasonable shout, but I don't think we should pay much more than that. I don't think he's played enough to warrant us paying more than 10 million. He's got a WhoScored rating of 6.49, but simply he hasn't had the games. 9 league starts this season. He still managed 5 goals and 2 assists, so he's contributed there to a goal directly every 126 minutes. I've got him as a 2-star likelihood to sign. The rumours don't seem to go away, but I just have reservations, and Rafa probably does as well, about his fitness. Can he make it through a full season? Is it worth us spending too much money on him? We've got Atsu through the door, so it applies slightly less pressure, but I think Jay Rodriguez wouldn't necessarily be at top of the list of wingers which Rafa Benitez might be looking at. Next up is a bit of a wild card, and he's an old fan favourite of Newcastle fans. It is none other than Mr. Hatem Ben Arfa. There's his lovely card there. So Ben Arfa moved to PSG after having an absolutely storming season for Nice the season before, where he scored 17 goals and 6 assists, and it got him a big profile move to PSG. Now, he's been used very, very sparingly. Only 5 league starts this season, which explains his 6.56 who scored rating. He's got a market value of 11.9 million, but his deal with PSG was only a 2-year deal, so he's only got a year left on that contract. He's someone, again, like, he's someone who the fans, a bit like Townsend, the fans know, we know what we're getting with him. He certainly looks a lot fitter, as you can see. He looks a lot fitter than he was when he left Newcastle and when he went on loan to Hull, for example. So he seems to have got himself into shape. Could he arrive as a super sub? Yeah, sure. I'd absolutely take him. I wouldn't expect him to be starting week in, week out. But as an option, as a game changer, when we're needing a goal, we need some magic to happen in the last 20 minutes of a game. What an asset to have. And if he's not being used, why not bring him back to a place where he'll largely be loved? I know some people, I mean, I thought to sell him in the first place was the right choice, simply because he was overweight, he wasn't fit, and his attitude wasn't great. His application wasn't there at all. But he's gone to France and he's proved that he can do it. He's still got it. He's an incredibly gifted technical footballer, one of the best I've seen in Newcastle shirt for technique. And it's a long shot, which is why I've got him as a 1-star likelihood to sign for Newcastle United this summer. But it'd be good crack, wouldn't it? Really good crack. So we'll see what happens there, but it's probably not going to happen. But a year left on his contract, you never know. Be a great super sub. Okay, next up we've got Manchester City's Spanish forward Nolito, who started the season pretty well, actually. He seemed to be quite a decent player. He is 30. He got a 6.65 for the season, simply because I think he lost his place, didn't he? Once Gabriel Jesus came, he couldn't establish himself ahead of, say, Sterling or Sane on the wings either. So he just kind of like dropped down the pecking order. I think he was signed by Guardiola just maybe as a sort of interim. He's probably not quite the quality that Pep Guardiola would be buying with, say, the likes of Bernardo Silva this summer. There was some weird rumours going around that we could possibly get him for 3.4 million or something. That just seems mental. To me, that seems absolutely crazy. As you can see, he's got a market value of 15.3 million. He's still got 3 years left on his Manchester City contract. There's no way they'll let him go for, you know, a fifth of his market value. I can't see that one happening. We might be able to get him for a cut price around 12, 15 million maybe. But yeah, I think those rumours, I'm not sure who started spreading those, but it seems a bit daft to me. He seems all right. I wouldn't mind saying him at Newcastle. He's a bit older. Does he have the energy that Rafa Benitez will be looking at when you look at the likes of Richie, who works hard? Atsu's fast and energetic. Is he in that same mould? No, but he could maybe double as a striker as well. So he's got a bit of versatility about him. I think we've got better options out there. Even if he is available, I think he probably will be moving on from Manchester City this summer. But a 2-star rating, yeah, there's a reasonable chance that we might get him. But I really wouldn't want to pay too much for him. And we certainly won't be getting him for 3.4 million. Next up is a young winger from Angers in France. It's Nicolas Pepe. There seems to be a lot of buzz about him, and the papers continue to mention him on an almost daily basis now. So he's a young Ivorian. He's just turned 20. He's literally just turned 22 today. The time of recording is the 29th of May. So he's just turned 22. He has not a spectacular season statistically speaking. 6.53 from WhoScored.com. He's got 3 goals and 1 assist in the French league. So it's not crazy, but I think there must be something to him. I haven't seen any of him play, I profess. I think the link must be that he's shown quite a lot of potential. He's still very raw. I know Rafa Benitez is known to want to bolster the fringe players on his squad. We've got very few decent young players that can genuinely challenge for first team positions. So Pepe might represent somebody who isn't expected to start, but again, as we discussed with Ben Arthur in the last piece, he could be a player who could be an impact sub, very quick, and could cause a bit of damage. If he's raw, if he's direct, I won't mind taking a punt on him. His market value is very cheap as well, only £638,000. He's got 2 years left on his current deal, so you can imagine we'd probably be able to get him for, I don't know, certainly under 8 million, I'd say. But I'm not an economist, I have no idea, so I might be completely wrong, guys. But Nicolas Pepe, rumours refuse to go away, would be a great squad booster, I think, and a good impact sub. Another young talent from France for the wing, which Rafa is reportedly interested in, is Yann Caramo from Caen. He seems to have had a better breakout season than Nicolas Pepe, for example. His market value is a lot higher at 1.7 million. He's got 1 year left on his contract, which is why there's probably a lot of buzz about him as well. He's got a WhoScored rating of 6.6, which isn't amazing, but at the same time, he's currently 18. He'll be 19 by the time the new season starts. He managed 5 goals and 4 assists for a relatively unfancied side. Very, very pacey, really good dribbler, and still very raw. This guy sounds like a player who would be a bit more exciting than Nicolas Pepe. He would fulfill, like we were talking about, exciting young players at the club who could be pushing, could be knocking on the door to keep the likes of Matt Ritchie's focus and performances high, and Atsu as well. He sounds like a really, really exciting prospect. I've only got him as a 1-star simply because I think at that age, would he make such a big move to a different country? Other clubs are bound to be interested in him as well. So I've got him as a 1-star probability, Yann Caramo. But he sounds like he could fit the bill for Rafa Benitez, and he sounds like he could be a really, really exciting young player, wonder kid. So I wouldn't be disappointed to see him come through the door if Rafa thought he was good enough for the Premier League. Next up is somebody I've given a 2-star probability of signing for us. It's Lazar Markovic, who played for Hull on loan last season. By all accounts, he did pretty well under Marco Silva. I know that obviously didn't turn out very well. He ended up relegated. But he's a player who was highly touted when he first arrived at Liverpool, but he never really settled there. I think he did all right at Hull, given that he was in a sort of a team on the demise. He's a really good dribbler. He's only got a 6.55 WhoScored rating, but again, he wasn't playing too much, having only come on loan for the second half of the season, I think. He's a very good dribbler. He's got 2 years left on his deal with a market value of 8.5 million. I think we could get him for pretty cheap. I think we could get him for under 15 million should we want him. The Serbian's only 23. He's still raw slightly. He's got enough potential, but he's still got a lot to grow into, I think. So there's question marks there of whether he can cut it in the Premier League. Big question marks. I don't think he'll be top of the list, but as a player that we could get who has a lot of talent, probably just needs a run of games and a bit of confidence, a bit of nurturing. I've got him as a 2-star rating there, a 2-star probability of signing for us. We'll see what happens. I think he's a bit versatile as well. I think he could bring something to the team. Maybe not first choice, but he should surely be knocking on the door in our Premier League side. Okay, so we've had a look at wingers. Now I want to have a look at forwards. So the situation with forwards at the moment, as it stands, speaking on the 29th of May 2017, is that Gil is probably expected to stay. He's been used in all of the new shirt promotional videos with his number 9 hanging on in the changing room. There's question marks about Murphy and Mitrovic. I think certainly Murphy won't join us in the Premier League. Still a big question mark over Mitrovic. I think there's still a big question mark about whether Rafa Benitez wants to use a target man at all. but a target man would represent a decent plan B. So I wouldn't, and especially if we're going to be buying a lot of wingers, it would make sense for us to have that plan B. Whether he thinks Mitrovic can cut it, Mitrovic might get till January to prove himself. If not, we might see him be moved on. But I think certainly would be looking for a new Gale, if not a more senior version of Gale. Gale had an obviously outstanding season in the Championship, but he won't rely on Gale to get all of our goals in a tougher league in the Premier League. So let's have a look at some of the players who might be options up front, whether that be more of a Gale type player, fast, energetic, closing down, fox in the box, good positional play, anticipation, great finisher, or whether we go for a target man option, I guess trying to fulfill the roles of Murphy, Mitrovic, but better versions of, potentially more established, more experienced at the top flight. So, first on the list is young Spanish sensation Sandro Ramirez, who's plying his trade in Malaga. He's had an absolutely unreal season. He's got 14 goals and 3 assists for Malaga. Good passing, great long shots, good at direct free kicks as well. He's got a who scored rate of 7.07, which is phenomenal in an unfancied side. He's come from the Barcelona academy. He's got a market value of 5.1 million, given that there's a reported release clause of 5.1 million. So I've got him as a 2-star probability of signing. There's the Rafa link, the Spanish link there. If he does want to move to the Premier League, I'd like to think we were in there for him. He's probably the right level for us. He's probably a better version of Gale as well. He's very prolific. I think he would do very well in the Premier League, but there's going to be a lot of clubs after him. There was reports about Atletico Madrid wanting to sign him, and like I said as well, but then there's question marks about whether they've got a transfer embargo. So Ramirez might not be on the table for Atletico anymore. He might be looking for other options. If we act fast, if we act with conviction, he might be a player, might be a real coup that Rafa could sign. And you know, we all got excited when Jose Perez came from Tenerife a couple of years ago, and he absolutely smashed at the Premier League. I think Ramirez has the potential to have even more impact when he first arrives. He seems to have the lot. He seems to be an excellent striker, and I really would love to see him at Newcastle, but would face quite stiff competition, I think. Next up on the forwards list is a target man who I quite admire. It's a player who's been linked with Newcastle previously. It's Bas Dost, the Dutch centre forward. Now he's had a spectacular season with Sporting in the Portuguese leagues. He's managed to score 34 goals with 4 assists in only 31 games, which is absolutely ridiculous return. He's got a who score rate of 7.55, which is incredible. It's really impressive. Yes, Liga NOS isn't as big as some of the other top European leagues, but that's serious numbers. And a player that we've held interest in before, certainly Graham Carr. So it might be time to move for him. He might have some competition for it as well, because he's just been outstanding. If we were to go for him, that would tell us a lot about Rafa's intention of how serious he was about using target men as well as smaller, pacier forwards, as we just talked about. He's got a market value of 10.2 million with 3 years left on that deal. So after the season he's had, he would not come cheap. You're probably looking at around, I don't know, 25, 30, 35 million. There's been reports that Chinese clubs are interested in him as well, but would he want to go there? I think for the player he is, he would see players like Benteke, who have similar kinds of players to him, thriving. I think he could do a job in the Premier League, and I think he would present a better option than Mitrovic, and a player who we could really load, really attacking threat from set plays, from crosses as well, if we're going to have a lot of wingers. I've got him as a 2-star probability sign for us, because I think we'd face competition. I think he'd be quite expensive, but damn does he know where the goal is. think it would be a great signing. As we exit Planet Dost, next up on the list is young Chelsea player who was playing in the Championship last season on loan to Bristol City. It's Tammy Abraham. Now, there's been rumours this week of a possible loan deal that we've been granted permission to speak to Tammy Abraham about a loan signing. He certainly had an exceptional season in the Championship, didn't he? Bristol City, he scored 23 goals, got 3 assists in quite a mediocre side. He looks special, this boy. He's English. He's still only 19. He's a teenager. He got a rating of 7.06 on Who Scored. His market value is 4.25 million, with 2 years left on his deal. I don't think we'd be looking to buy him, or certainly Chelsea wouldn't be looking to sell him, should I say. But a loan deal for Tammy Abraham would be a good piece of business, I think. This is why I've got him as a 3-star rating. I think these rumours seem quite strong. And he's the kind of player that we probably should be going for. He's more than proven himself in the Championship. He's got about as many goals as Dwight Gale did. He's a different kind of player. He's still mobile, but he's a bit taller, natural finisher. Clearly very talented, and Chelsea might be looking to ship him out to a Premier League club to get some minutes to see how he fares in the top flight. 3-star probability signing for us. I think it would be a really shrewd loan move. And really bolster our attack. Next up is another Chelsea striker who I'm a big fan of, really big fan of. It's Michy Batshuayi, the Belgium international. He hasn't played much for Chelsea. He's not managed to usurp Diego Costa this season in their title-winning side. His Who Score rating is only 6.36. But that's quite deceptive because he's actually got 5 goals and 1 assist this season in only 239 minutes in the Premier League. That's crazy. In terms of, we talk about Gale's goals to minutes ratio. This guy's scoring almost a goal every half of football. About every 47 minutes he's contributing to either a goal or he's assisting as well. He seems to be the right age. He's clearly an excellent finisher. He might have seen enough this season to think that he's not going to get ahead of Diego Costa, or if they sell Diego Costa, are they going to bring in? It's like they're going to bring in a blue chip player, you know. I think the club should break the bank for Michy Batshuayi. I think he's exceptional. He's a player we could build a team around. He'll be unbelievable for us. He will be quite expensive though. His market value is 21.25 million, and he has got 4 years left on that contract. But if he wants out, then he might be looking at other Premier League sides. He's part of Belgium's golden age. In fact, another great stat, he only played 21 minutes in Euro 16 last year. However, he still managed a goal. So the guy doesn't need a lot of time to make an impact. I think we should absolutely break the bank for him. If not, if he's available on loan, I'll be delighted with that as well. I've got another 3-star likelihood to sign because I think he'd represent a very good loan option, and he's the kind of calibre that we need to be looking at in order to fulfil an ambition that Rafa clearly wants to achieve in the Premier League in the first season. He doesn't want to just survive. He wants to aim for top 10, and he wants to do it with some quality players. Batshuayi would be such a player, and it would make us very potent going forward indeed. Next up is a Premier League striker who I've been really impressed with, and he got me loads of points on Fantasy Premier League as well. It's the Norwegian striker Joshua King from Bournemouth. He really stepped up this season when Bournemouth had injuries up front. He managed 16 goals and 2 assists, and most of that was in the second half of the season. He really went on a rampage, really proving a lot of players, proving his worth. In terms of the other players who scored lots of league goals, he was I think he was about in the top 10 of Premier League scorers this season, which is, he had absolutely no right to do. Absolutely no right to do. He's versatile. I think he can play the number 10 role, or he can play a striker as well. And he's very much fits into that Gale mould. I think he's quite similar. But it's his finishing that really impresses me. His technique when he strikes a ball, I think it's amazing, and I think, as we've talked about in previous videos with Adam Smith on the defenders links, we've seen that we can raid Bournemouth. Yes, they finished 9th, largely due to this guy's goals, but he's a player who I think has a reasonable market value as well. If we have a look, here's 3.83 million market value. He's got 3 years left on that deal. I've got him as a 2-star probability of signing. There hasn't been too many rumours or too much buzz about him in terms of him coming to Newcastle, but I think he's a player that, again, he's had a spectacular season, but not necessarily an obvious target for a lot of the bigger clubs. I think he's a kind of player that, if we're striving to aim for the top 10, he's a player who we need to be having a look at. He's got a WhoScored rating of 7.08. He's 25, so he's a good age. He's really proved himself. I think he'd be a great signing. I'm not sure he'd be necessarily a first choice. I think maybe Ramirez might be the first choice, but if Ramirez is unattainable, you might well look at Josh King and see what he's done this season in the Premier League and think, right, we need a bit of that. If he can do it, if we can get him in, I think he'd be a great option. Joshua King, 2-star rating there. Next up is a Liverpool striker who's probably looking to move on this summer. He's not in Klopp's first team plans. It's England international Daniel Sturridge. Now, Daniel Sturridge is a player who divides a lot of opinion. Look, his talent isn't in question. His finishing isn't in question. When he's fit, he is one of the most lethal goal scorers of the Premier League. He really is. But that's the big caveat, isn't it? When he's fit. A bit like Andy Carroll, performs when he's on the pitch, but how often is he even on the pitch? Looking at his stats here, since joining Liverpool, he's had 12 injuries in 4 years, and he's missed 84 matches because of that. They're significant numbers. You're looking at, that's like, what, 21 matches missed a season? If we were to bring him in, he's got a market value of 18.7 million. He's got 2 years left on his deal. You could probably get it for about 25 million, I'd say, because of those injuries. He'd be wanting big wages. He'd probably be possibly the highest earner at Newcastle if he were to arrive. What I don't want to do is pay 25 million, is to give him wages of, I don't know, what, 100 grand? To come and play for Newcastle, but for him to be injured for more than half the season. He is a brilliant finisher, but I'd want somebody coming in. I want the big players that we're bringing in not to be sitting on the treatment table. We've had far too much of that over the years at Newcastle. Players, Michael Owen, perfect example, superb finisher and ended up scoring once every 2 games in his Newcastle career, but he was injured all the time. He's just one of the, look, it might not be their fault, but we can't take a risk on somebody who is almost certain to get injured somewhere along the season. He's got an average rating this season from WhoScored of 6.73 and only 3 Premier League goals. But again, he hasn't really been playing. It's a big risk. He'd be expensive, very much like Luke Shaw, I think, for Man United, as we talked about in the Defenders video there. I don't think he's the man for Rafa. I think we can do better. If we got him, he's excellent, but we just wouldn't see enough of him. It's not worth it for me. 1-star probability rating to sign Daniel Sturridge for Newcastle this summer. Next up is another Premier League striker, is Burnley's Andre Gray. So there's a lot of rumours about Gray joining us, that Rafa's interested in him. Let's have a look at his season. So he's got 6.42 on WhoScored for an average rating, which is probably below par really. Quite surprising given that he's actually scored 9 goals and got 3 assists this season. So it's not a bad return for a player playing for a club like Burnley. But maybe his all-round play isn't quite there. I know Rafa Benitez is very particular about that. This one surprises me, and it surprises me that Rafa might be interested in him. I think he certainly shouldn't be first choice for bolstering a forward line. He's soon to be 26. He has issues off the pitch. I think it's fair to say. Would his application be there? Is he the right personality that we want in the dressing room? I'm not so sure. This is why I've got a 1-star probability rating for him. He's got a market value of 8.5 million, but he has only got 1 year left on his contract, so it's likely that we could get him for around the £10 million mark, 12 million possibly. He is English, so he'd add to that homegrown quota, but I can't imagine he's going to be first choice for us. I think we'll go after other targets. I think there's better targets. He's had a reasonable season in an unfancied side, but I don't fancy this one. Not for me. Another player that we've been linked with from Manchester City, sounds like they're going to have a massive clear out there this summer, is young Nigerian striker Kelechi Iheanacho. He's a player who has taken the Premier League by storm when he's played. Very much like Batshuayi, it's his goals to minutes ratio that is just outstanding. Now look, his who scored rating was 6.45 this season. He didn't get a lot of game time, ahead of Aguero, ahead of Gabriel Jesus as well. But he's only played 631 minutes in the Premier League, Champions League and FA Cup. So only 631 minutes a season. However, he's still got 7 goals and 3 assists. So he's directly contributed to a goal every 66 minutes that he plays. That's incredible. And we saw what he did in the season before as well. His finishing, every time he'd come on as a substitute for Aguero, he'd nick a goal, he'd get a goal, he'd come up with a brace. The guy is just a natural finisher. He's a complete wonder kid. I think that this would be an excellent signing. I think there's a 2-star probability of him signing. That's more to do on loan, I'd say. It depends what Pep thinks of him. It's likely that Pep's not going to play him. It's likely that if he was interested in playing Iheanacho this season, he would have seen more than 631 minutes across all competitions, isn't it? So it's likely he's going to be moved on. Whether that's a loan option first, I think we should be fighting to be ahead of that queue. Absolutely fighting for it. He's a superb finisher. I think he's a better version of Gale. He's really quick. He just knows where the goal is. This is a player who we need to be going for to show ambition. I would love to see him. I would love to see him arrive. He's got a market value of 8.5 million, 4 years left on his deal. We wouldn't be paying under 20 million for him, no chance. Probably closer to 25, 30 if we were to buy him outright, if he was available. But I think a loan is a much more realistic approach here, and he's surely someone Rafa would love to have at the club. Next up is yet another Manchester City player, almost forgotten man, Wilfried Boney, who's been on loan at Stoke. Look, it's likely that he's going to be moved on this summer, almost no question. He's 28 now, the Ivorian. He's got a market value of 15.3 million and he's got 2 years left on his Manchester City deal. Given that Manchester City will probably be wanting to release him to give up funds for Pep's own recruitment plans, I think we could get him, if we were to get him, for around his market value, maybe 13, 14 million. He hasn't really pinned down much form at Stoke. There's a big question mark about whether he's still up to it in the Premier League. When he first arrived in Swansea, I mean, Newcastle were linked with him, weren't they? And Swansea beat us to it, and he was excellent. And he got his big move to Manchester City, but he just then never got games. He's strong. He's surprisingly good in the air for how small he is. He's a really good finisher as well. He sort of is proven at Premier League level, but that was like 3 seasons ago. Does he still have it? I think we would only be looking for him if we didn't get some first choice targets. I think we'd only be looking at him if we could get a reasonable price for him as well. To have a reasonable price accepted for him. He's got a who scored rating of 6.61, but that kind of shows that he's really been out of favour. I don't think it's massively likely that he'll be signing for us in any capacity, either on loan or bought outright. I think Rafa will be looking at some other players, certainly. I've given him a 1-star probability of signing for Newcastle. Wilfried Boney, maybe a few years ago, but not now. Last on the strikers list is none other than French sensation from Celtic, Moussa Dembele. No, not that one. He's a player who's absolutely thrived under Brendan Rodgers. He's played 49 games in all competitions. He's got 32 goals and 9 assists this season. He is fulfilling the potential that he showed at Fulham. I know a lot of European clubs will be circling for him if he were to be available this season. There's not been too many links to Newcastle, but he's a player that I threw in on this list because I think he's a player that we could and should be looking at. A lot of the bigger clubs might want him to prove himself outside of the Scottish League before making a big money move. Maybe Newcastle can provide him with an opportunity to play in the Premier League. He's a natural goal scorer. He's a bit of an all-rounder. He's got a market value of 4.25 million, but he's still got 3 years left on his Celtic deal. But again, I don't think there'd be too much trouble attracting players from the Scottish League into the Premier League. There's too much money. There's too much exposure to turn down, I'd say. He's been great. He's got a 6.88 rating on Who Scored, which is reasonable. However, with the caveat that Who Scored don't record Scottish League statistics, so that would more than likely be well into the 7s for his average rating. He's still pretty young. He's due to start the next season as just turned 21 as well. He'd be a great signing. Another wonder kid. He's exceptional. Knows where the goal is, and I think he'd be relatively easily attainable. Should we be able to fend off advances of other clubs as well? I think we're probably the right level for him. Before maybe if he was to become a success in the Premier League, he would then go on to an even bigger club. I do think he's that good. But I threw him in there because I think he's the kind of target that we should be going for, and pretty realistic as well. Right, so that's pretty much the lowdown of our attackers. We've had a look at some wingers that could play both left and right wing. We've looked at some forwards and some strikers, players who may be more in the Gale role, maybe more in the target man mould as well. There's a big mix of homegrown players already playing in the Premier League, but then also some foreign talent as well. It'll be interesting to see what Rafa does. We know he wants to play with a Gale type player because our whole tactic last season was built around playing with a Gale, a quick player that we could break quickly on the counter attack and close down when out of possession at the back as well. But we're buying a lot of wingers apparently, so maybe having a good target man option. I don't know if Rafa fully trusts Mitrovic. I don't think Murphy will follow us as well into the Premier League, so maybe we go for a player who can fulfill that kind of role as well, so to give us another option, a plan B, a plan to play against those more physical Premier League defenders. It's going to be tough. Goals help you survive in the Premier League, and as well as having a good defence, a solid defence, we're going to need to be potent up front. Now, we haven't really struggled for goals in the Championship, even despite Gale being injured for a lot of the second half of the season, but we can't rely on him getting injured again. We probably need players that are better than him, who are established at the top level, to help him so that he's not feeling the pressure of having to score all the goals for us this season. It'd be really interesting to see what happens. Obviously, everybody I've mentioned on this video and in the other 2 videos as well, please check those out. The links will be in the description below. That'll be transfer link defenders, transfer link midfielders as well, where I've looked at other players, other areas of the team which we probably be looking to improve. So please check those out as well. If you've enjoyed this video, if you're listening to this as well on iTunes or SoundCloud, check out the tracks built before in the list that I've posted. So it'd be really interesting to see what Rafa does. I think we will go for a bit of a mix up front, but wing-wise, we're certainly going to want some versatility. I'd love to see a player like Bas Dost come. I'd love to see a player like Batshuayi come, and Iheanacho. And on the wing, I'd love to see Townsend back. I think he's a player that it seems pretty likely that we're going to get back, given the circumstances that have happened recently with Big Sam leaving Crystal Palace. So, thanks very much for watching and listening. I've been Adam from the Toon Network. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, SoundCloud and iTunes. Tell all your friends. It'd be great to get this, to get other people watching this as well. Comment below who you think we should be going for. Have I missed anybody? I almost certainly have, don't worry. I couldn't have got all of the rumours. It's the end of May now. The transfer landscape is likely to change as the months go on. But it'll be really interesting to see at the end of the summer, having looked at all these videos, how many I got right in terms of probability of signing, the 3-star rating. Tell us what you think in the comments below. Tweet us what you think. It'd be really interesting. I'm really interested to hear from all of you. But for now, thanks very much. I know there's been long videos and long podcasts, but hopefully you've enjoyed it. It gives you an insight into the kinds of players that we might be signing, and we'll see what happens. It's a really exciting time to be a Newcastle fan. Really looking forward to the Premier League season, and the gossip barn is in full swing already. Thanks very much. We'll see you very soon. I've been Adam from the Toon Network. Bye-bye. Cheers, guys.